Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first installment of the Rabbit Hole Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Chad Lyon, and with me, as always, is Tyler Bevel.
Hello.
And our producer, Micheal Bird.
Hey.
And today we are reacting to day one of the rookie draft and talking a little dynasty. We watched the draft together. It's a good time. Some pretty big surprises. I was surprised at a few things. I'm sure we all were. I know we all were. Tyler, any real thoughts here before we get going on this?
No, excited to go over these players.
All right, well, I guess in that case, let's hop right into it. Right out of the gate, first overall to Chicago, which I think we all knew was going to happen, Caleb Williams. I don't like all the hate on the kid. I think he's going to be fine. I think he might be great. Elite arm talent. The elasticity in some of his throws is insane. Incredible off-platform throws, even when he rolls to the left. Great at sensing pressure. Very, very creative, when things break down. Fantastic on the run and rolling out. Stature's a little average, not super explosive. Fails over the middle at times. Sketchy footwork at times. Tends to box himself in sometimes when the pressure is coming straight up the middle. But honestly, I think that stuff can just be coached right out. I don't care that much about the flaws. I think he's the real deal. Fantastic landing spot, excellent weapons. I think you take him at 101 actually in all rookie draft formats, regardless. You could make an argument for Marvin Harrison, but I think it's Caleb Williams at 101. Tyler, what do you say?
Yeah, Caleb Williams at 101, especially if you're in a super flex league. I mean, that just amplifies it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything you're saying, and even with the pros and cons. I guess my big picture is last 2 years at USC, 93 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 27 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
Make the argument that the other quarterbacks that were drafted had better teams around him. What he did, I know that 7-5 last year with the Trojans, but a lot of times you felt like he was maybe even pushing it last year to make too much happen at times. But I mean, yeah, 93 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 27 rushing touchdowns. It's 1-1.
Yeah, and to bounce off what you just said there, I think he had to. The talent around him was not great,
right,
by any means. And his below average O-line play, the guy had to carry the team, and he played big boy schools. Is he 101 for you?
101.
Yeah, in all formats.
Yep,
totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more is left to say about him. Like I said, the weapons, man. Chicago did a great job, knowing who they were taking, saying, "Hey, let's put this kid, in a good situation," and they did. DJ Moore was already there, bringing in Keenan Allen, bringing in Swift in the backfield to go with Khalil Herbert. I mean, he's going to have a good backfield. Cole Kmet, above average tight end, and drafting Odunze. I'm still not totally sure how we say that, but I think they did a great job. And
the running backs are no slouch either. I mean, there's good running back room there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Roschon Johnson's still there. That the jury's still out on him a little bit, but yeah, I love what they've done to put him in a position to have success.
Yeah, and
they did the right thing. The Bears finally look like they're doing the right thing. We'll see, but I like him a lot, man. I think he could be a fantasy star. I really do.
Shane Waldron, offensive coordinator, did some pretty good things with Geno Smith the last couple of years.
Yeah, people forget that.
Love the situation. 1-1 for me.
Yep, he can paint his nails all he wants. I don't care.
Means nothing to my fantasy team.
Nope. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot more to say. When you take a guy at 101, it's kind of cut and dry. It's pretty obvious. Speaks for itself. Yeah. Moving on to Jayden Daniels, second overall to the Commanders. Super elite athlete. Way better than advertised pocket presence and accuracy. Exceptional big play ability. He can identify downfield leverage and speed matchups super efficiently and make you pay with touch and accuracy. he's kind of looked at as just, oh, he's such an explosive athlete, blah, blah, blah. And I agree. But, man, he's great in the pocket, great pocket presence. And one thing I noticed was the way he uses his eyes to move defenders off of his targets, which I think that's elite guys do that. I know he played at LSU, but he did play big boys. I love quarterbacks that play big boy schools. And he certainly did that. He does need to do a better job avoiding hits and sliding. He's going to get crushed in the NFL if he doesn't do a better job with that. I mean, he's got a smaller frame. That's got to change, but I believe it will. He's not Josh Allen. He has to understand that fast. And I think he will. He'll take one hit and be like, all right, I need to get down. He struggles with velocity, needs a little better anticipation, and he does tend to try to do too much. But I've got a weird mix of curiosity, excitement, and concern for Jayden Daniels. But in a super flex, I am taking him at 102. Anyone who knows me knows that I love running quarterbacks almost to a fault sometimes, but I love running quarterbacks for fantasy purposes. I'll absolutely bet on his massive rushing upside. The tendency to take big shots, though, with that smaller frame is that's where the concern lies, outside of the curiosity and excitement. But the elite accuracy and touch coupled with the rushing, I mean, that just, it sells me. And I don't hate his landing spot. What's your thoughts on Jayden Daniels to the Commanders?
I have in a league that we are in the 102 spot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have great quarterbacks. I am definitely planning on taking Jayden Daniels, assuming that Caleb Williams is off the board. And again, different. I feel a lot of the same things here that I feel about Caleb Williams, like with the playmaking ability. And he, like you said, LSU definitely had better weapons around him than Caleb Williams did.
Sure.
I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Nabers,
Yeah.
good things to throw to. But last year, they're like 3,800 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
I love that touchdown to interception ratio.
And he played good in big games. One game, He had one down game, but I mean, he wasn't afraid to rise to the occasion.
Didn't have to carry his team.
I don't hate the landing spot. I mean, you bring in Austin Eckler. I think that's a great benefit for a rookie quarterback, pass catching playmaker out of the backfield. I don't stick a nose up at Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and assuming Luke McCaffrey, right? Really third, Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, maybe with Luke McCaffrey.
But either way,
be good.
I don't think that that's a bad receiving room. So I like the landing spot too. 102.
Mm-hmm.
I think in all formats, I'm still taking the upside of Jayden Daniels, even over a Marvin Harrison, unless I am totally set at the quarterback position.
What if you have a Josh Allen and a Kyler Murray? Somehow maybe you could have traded for that, made that happen. And if you did, boy, it's awful hard to pass on Harrison there. But in most positions, if you're at 102, you probably don't have Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. And if you do, and you're losing, you probably could use Marvin Harrison anyway because something ain't right with your skill guys. So,
and I think the offense is going to be really opened up. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So you feel like there's going to be a lot of, even for a rookie, I mean, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities, and I think the fantasy points will be there. He's my 102 in all formats.
Strong agree. Like Caleb Williams, it's a little cut and dry here, but we more often than not, we assume super flex because it's just better. You're not getting me in a dynasty league that's not super flex. I'm just not going to do it. So 102 for Jayden Daniels, I think is a kind of a slam dunk. You almost have to, because if you're in that position in a super flex league, you probably do not have two good, young, reliable quarterbacks.
Yeah, but Jayden Daniels, a lot to like there. And I think just when we're talking about these dynasty and especially these super flex, the reason that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a great talent, but I just think there's so much upside with the quarterbacks. Even, if you're talking dynasty, this is long-term, the value there of having multiple quarterbacks, even in a win-now scenario where you can use those quarterbacks to your advantage in lots of different ways, whether it be trading. If you take Jayden Daniels and it's a hit and you have a veteran quarterback you want to move on from and get another weapon for that win-now year, that mode, I mean, I just don't think you can go wrong with a quarterback with that much potential.
The rushing upside.
With the rushing
It's
upside,
huge.
there is the injury concern. I get that. I agree with what Chad's saying there. But now it gets a little shaky once we talk about some of these next quarterbacks. But 101, 102, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, 100%.
Totally agree. Speaking of next quarterbacks, let's move on to Drake May, 3rd overall to the Pats. Prototypical big kid with a big arm. Great athleticism, too, for his size. Makes all the off-platform throws. I love that he's willing to take risks, but he's also willing to take what the defense gives him at the same time, which I think that's a great trait. Problem solver. He's creative with a high IQ. I do like Drake May, but he does struggle to layer velocity with touch, as in, overthrowing his guys, whipping it out of bounds, a little off to the right or a little off to the left. He lacks a little touch with his velocity, but that'd be all right. That can get coached out. Tends to have inconsistent footwork, and that leads to inaccurate throws. And then what seems to happen from what I've noticed watching tape is the bad throws do at times tend to snowball into cold streaks. But overall, I think he can be a good quarterback, but I don't love the landing spot at all. But I'd probably still bet on his talent. Those flaws, like I said, they can be coached out. That's people who say they can't are they're wrong. I'm sorry. They said the same crap about Josh Allen. Just a big guy with a big arm. You can't really fix it. Well, that's insane. You can fix things. You can fix accuracy. Otherwise, why do we have coaches? What's the point? That said, New England is really going to have to get him some real weapons and build around him. What he has is not it. It's not it. At this point, his top 2 targets are Jalen Polk and Demario Douglas, and I do believe they drafted another guy late. There's other guy. What's that?
They brought KJ Osborne from the Vikings.
Right.
Not that that's an 8.
No, but it's another just eh. There's other guys that I actually prefer over over Drake May.
Juju, I believe, is still there.
Yes, he is, but he's toast. I would probably still take Drake May at 105, 106, maybe just before or just after Malik Nabers, depending on your situation. Again, the prototypical quarterback, big kid with a big arm. I love stuff like that. Not as much as I love running quarterbacks, but he has great athleticism.
He has that ability,
he
though.
He does. Are you okay with the landing spot? Do you think he can overcome it? Can he carry the team, or are you just going to go elsewhere? If you are pick 3, where are you going? Drake May, or are you looking at another quarterback, or probably Harrison?
I'm looking at a wide receiver, another quarterback at 103. To be honest with you, I like Drake May.
No matter your situation.
No matter my situation.
Okay.
I like other quarterbacks that we're going to talk about later more than I like Drake May. I like wide receivers that I would take over Drake May, and I love the kid. It's not that, but I have a lot of concerns. Even I don't know Gerard Mayo, the coach in New England this year, and I get it. I think Drake May has the most talent, but you bring in Brissett, Zappy's still there. I know, but it's and the other concern is Alex Van Pelt. I value these offensive coordinators a lot. Alex Van Pelt, pretty much always been a West Coast guy. And the lack of weapons is just I think Drake May starts. I don't want to get that confused. I think he starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Right out of the gate.
But there's other quarterbacks that I also think are going to start. So he's not my 103. Yeah, I actually have him after guys like McCarthy and Bo Nix, even on if we're talking just quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I think coming in here and asking him to carry a team is not going to be something that he's going to be able to do. The West Coast thing maybe will help for winning games, but I don't like it from a fantasy standpoint as much as some of these other guys. So love the kid, don't love the situation.
Yep, I'm with you 100% on that. I don't think I'd take him at 103 either. There's other guys I like better. Like I said, I think I said 105, 106. you can make a pretty strong case there. It's super flex. At the end of the day, it's super flex. He should go around there. And boy, if you're at 107, 108 and he falls on your lap because people are afraid, I'm all over that.
Sure.
All over it. Well, with that said, let's there's not a whole lot to talk about there. They need to get him more weapons. So let's.
And he didn't have, to his credit, he didn't have a lot of weapons at North Carolina.
No,
I mean,
Malachi Corley.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. I'm not big on Corley, but he was great in college. He was there when Drake May needed him. But you're right, he didn't have a ton of weapons. But this is the NFL, and every quarterback needs weapons. I don't care who it is, they do. Even Brady needed Gronk.
And there was some concern, like with Drake May, and same can be said for Caleb Williams, but the situation's a little different. There was definitely a drop off from Drake May from 22 to 23.
Agreed.
Yeah, still love the kid. Don't love the situation though.
Right. Okay. Move on to the next quarterback here taken.
The big shocker.
The big shocker. Micheal Penix, 8th overall to the Falcons. Kind of a weird move. But I get it, I guess. You have a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles. And you take Micheal Penix. I don't know. I don't know if I like it, but I guess in the real world, I get it. He's got a massive arm with elite velocity, great angle freedom, high IQ, fearless. Totally fearless gunslinger. High-level pocket navigation. Can run and is athletic. He just really doesn't, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that's because he's torn his ACL twice. Really rough injury history. Not super creative, and his hips do tend to stiffen up at times. Little upper body dominant as a passer. I don't love that. And like I said, the ACL is 4 years straight of season-ending history, and he's a 24-year-old rookie. I love his weapons. I really do. But it's most likely going to take an injury to Cousins for him to play. I'll probably most likely avoid drafting Micheal Penix if I'm rebuilding. With that said, I do have high interest if I'm in win now mode. Maybe I have a couple older quarterbacks, like maybe I have a Stafford and a Rodgers, and maybe that's all I have. But I've got a win now roster around me, knowing my quarterbacks are just about done. If I'm in that situation, obviously we're talking super flex. If I've got taxi squads available in my league, in that case, I'd be okay with taking them somewhere in the second round, and I would just stick them on my taxi squad and wait and see what happens. What do you think?
I was really high on Micheal Penix pre-draft, and I think this is an amazing landing spot if Kirk Cousins isn't there.
Yep.
And I
fully agree.
I don't think he plays for, unless there's an injury, like you said. I don't think this kid plays for 3 years.
4 years. So now you're talking a 28-year-old getting his first stuff. Yeah, I don't know, man.
And do
you like that scenario?
I think Kirk Cousins is going to come out and do awesome things in that offense.
Sure.
So I don't think Micheal Penix plays for a long time. Honestly, you can draft Micheal Penix and you can tell me I told you so in 4 years, because I love this kid coming out, and he's out of all the quarterbacks we're talking about in the first round, he's my last one, and it is purely because of landing spot. Like, I really like this kid coming out of Washington. Yeah, I don't think he starts. I don't think for a while.
Like you said, it is going to take an injury. There's no doubt about it. Like,
and I love everything about this scenario.
Yeah.
Like, even Drake London, Rondale Moore, Kyle Pitts, John Robinson. They got Zach Robinson as the OC from under Sean McVay's tree. Yep. I mean, if Kirk Cousins isn't there, this is the epitome of the perfect scenario that you want a rookie quarterback to land into, but I don't like it.
Right.
I think Kirk Cousins comes out there. I think he does Kirk Cousins things, and he's the starter for the foreseeable future for the Falcons. And yeah, maybe for me, you're talking late second for me at this point.
Even if you're in that situation that I had mentioned. So if you're in your quarterbacks right now are Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford.
Yep.
And you have pick, let's say it's a 12-man league. You've got in round 2, you've got pick 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range. Would you take Penix at that point and stick him in your practice squad?
Chances are, just going off a lot of the mocks that I've done, no. I'm still taking another player that is going to benefit my team that year. Running back, getting one of the wide receivers there. I mean,
can you make the argument though?
Sure, you can make the argument, right. But am I doing that? Probably not.
Okay.
Like I'd have to be backed into a corner in the late second round where I just all the players that I liked at the other positions weren't there, and I'm sitting there staring at Penix. It's like, okay.
If your best 2 options are Micheal Penix and Jonathan Brooks, which is it going to be? Yeah.
Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Even with the ACLs.
Yep.
All right. There you have it. All right. Good enough. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to go with there. We kind of know the situation. You could literally be drafting a 24-year-old rookie quarterback who doesn't see time till he's 27, 28 years old. And unless there's an early injury to cover.
This is a dynasty. We're planning for the future, but like fantasy championships don't come easy.
No, it's hard to win.
So I want
if you're in win, I get it. I completely understand. Okay. That's Micheal Penix. J.J. McCarthy, 10th overall to the Vikings. Boy, I love that spot. A landing spot, man. Super high velocity thrower, rips it right through tight coverage. High level athlete, super mechanically sound, great hips, gives his receivers a chance. His aerial accuracy is great. So he's always giving receivers a shot there. Makes like these weird obtuse angle throws like underarm and sidearm to avoid, pressure coming at him and to throw around defenders. One thing I like that I noticed on tape, in tight coverage, he will lead his receivers low. And I love that about him. Put it pretty well right in the dirt, but right on the money. Get that, receiver out of danger with that tight coverage. I just think I think JJ could be a really good quarterback, not only because of the situation he's in, partially because of it, but I think he's getting weird hate because Michigan was so good. And I get it. I do understand that. I really do. But when they played, it was the Alabama game, that entire second half and into that overtime, I think it was double overtime, he carried that team. Like, he showed me that he can carry a team. His willingness to take what's given is great. I think a lot of quarterbacks, they don't, it sounds so simple, but they just don't have that. A lot of these, rookies coming in, just the willingness to take what's given. The best quarterbacks do that. And I love that about him. He does predetermined throws at times and forces passes into tight coverage. But again, that goes along with that high velocity thrower who just rips it right through traffic. Pressure seems to force him to drop his eyes a bit. That's a little concerning. He can be a little uncontrolled and frantic. And again, he did benefit from all the elite talent, but I've watched him carry his entire team against a big dog team. That carries a lot of merit for me. My opinion is that he immediately steps into an elite offense with massive weapons all around him. I've got zero issues taking him as the third quarterback off the board, maybe even second after Williams. You can make that argument over Daniels. I really think you can, just based on landing spot and history of the franchise. So the Vikings' history isn't super great, but I'll give their history the nod over Washington. I would be comfortable with him at 104 with Harrison, the only non-QB ahead of him. You? Same? A little different?
I have him as 3.
You would absolutely take him over Marvin Harrison if you were sitting at 103. Depending on situation, or you just would.
Superflex, definitely.
Yeah. And everything we talk, let's for people listening, when we're talking dynasty, just assume, unless we know otherwise, just assume 2 QB superflex type league. So with that said, it is superflex. Are you taking McCarthy or are you taking Marvin Harrison at 3? Is this a situational thing, or are you just that high on McCarthy?
Situational, but
situational.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you love him,
but as my rankings, even with wide receivers involved, he's still 103. So I mean, like, just looking at it on paper, I have him as I want him in that third spot. Now, if you have 3 quarterbacks with a, then I'm probably taking Marvin Harrison Jr. But I mean, if I have 2 quarterbacks and a pretty good roster, I'm probably still going JJ McCarthy just because, like you said, I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Like even I mean, Justin Jefferson, easily make the argument that he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Jordan Addison is no slouch. Aaron Jones there. Hawkinson's pretty good last time I checked.
Yeah, he does all right.
O'Connell, in charge of the offense.
Fantastic coach. Love that guy.
Yeah, I love the situation. And I love what you touched on, that you can say all this stuff. That being said, wide receivers in Michigan, like I know Roman Wilson got drafted, but it wasn't, they were kind of a running team with a lot of talent there, a lot of talent on the line, don't get me wrong. But when it mattered most and what he put on tape in the big games, that to me won me over with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, people act like he can't carry the team. When I hear that, my immediate response is, well, then you didn't watch him play Alabama.
Right.
You just casually skipped over that game, because for 2 quarters and 2 overtimes, he carried that team.
And don't tell me that grit in those moments doesn't mean something.
That matters. It means the world. 100%. I love JJ McCarthy, and if he just goes 3 off the board and Harrison falls to 4, I'm not arguing with anybody over that.
I'm not laughing at anybody. That's
no. Some people might, but I'm not. I think it's a great pick. I think McCarthy has a chance to be a 12 to 15 year type player.
Yeah,
in Superflex, man, that's money.
I'll say, unless I have 3 quarterbacks that are starting, I'm still taking JJ McCarthy at 3.
Really?
Yes.
If you have
unless I have 3 quarterbacks.
Unless you have 3.
Yeah. So if I have 3 quarterbacks, then I'm probably starting to be like, okay, I have 3 starting quarterbacks. Let's add Marvin Harrison. But yeah, I love the landing spot, and I just poor Penix. But I mean, Jay McCarthy is the guy that's there, and I love the spot. I think good things are going to happen for JJ McCarthy.
Strongly agree. I think we agree on pretty much all of that. Yeah, there's probably not much more to talk about. JJ McCarthy, I think, is going to be very legit. I really do. With that said, 12th overall to the Broncos, Bo Nix. This is Ty's guy right here.
Love Bo Nix.
Oh, yeah. I like him too, man. I've really come around to him. High-level athlete. Fantastic change of direction and burst when he takes off. High velocity, snappy release from all the angles and platforms. Flawlessly escapes pressure. His creativity, super high level. I tell you what I really like. He does a great job recognizing mismatches, pre-snap, and using that against the defense, which is an awesome trait. Good ball handling, great distribution, great when rolling out. And he does have a tendency for elite precision passing and accuracy. Some of his cons, his arm strength is, I wouldn't call it elite. His footwork sometimes, from what I noticed, it can and has delayed his early reads. But again, this is Sean Payton's quarterback. I think that'll get coached out. When he's rolling through his progressions, I think he needs to be a little better there. Tends to hold the ball a little too long at times, and he does rely on his creativity to a fault and try to do too much. With that said, I like Nix. I love the landing spot. With a coach who absolutely loves him, that means a ton. This isn't a Frank Reich and Bryce Young thing. This is a coach who wants this kid there, sees exactly what he wants to see in a guy to run his particular offense. And the offense, like I said, it's perfect for his profile. And Sean Payton saw that. And again, like I said, most of his flaws, in my opinion, will get coached out of him. And again, I love running quarterbacks. Ty knows that. I love running quarterbacks in fantasy. And I'd take him over Drake May. And I'd take him just after Marvin Harrison in most cases at 104, 105. My thought. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you love Bo Nix.
I love Bo Nix.
Maybe you'll hear this.
Efficiency.
Confess your love to him.
Yeah. Hopefully. Hit me up, Bo. No, efficiency, I mean, highest passer rating in FBS history. That just says Drew Brees. To me, like when you're thinking of Drew Brees, you're thinking of that Sean Payton and him.
Drew Brees who can run.
Drew Brees who can run. Yeah. And I mean,
again, we're not calling him Drew Brees.
No,
you got a long road to be Drew Brees.
Nix, right? Drew Brees is Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah. Bo Nix has got a long way to go, but you can't help but make the comparisons. I mean, the guy is efficient, makes good decisions. And I think Denver, like you said, Sean Payton got his guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was in love with him. A lot of people coming into the draft didn't have him going as high as 12.
Ooh.
And Denver was all over it. This is who they wanted. The Broncos, we talked about it pre-show that the Broncos don't have a lot of money. I mean, with the whole Russell Wilson thing, but I mean, I think they're doing. Yeah, you got Sutton there, but I mean, they bring in Troy Franklin, his wide receiver that he had in Oregon. So
I like that move.
Yeah,
especially
where
move.
It happened. I mean, there's a comfort level there. He needed the weapons anyway.
Yep.
Get the guy that he's comfortable with.
Familiarity.
Yeah. Love this landing spot. I have him. Honestly, to me, it's Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, McCarthy, and then Nix, and then it's a drop-off.
Right.
Like, that's how I view this. Like, Drake May is the drop-off point for me, where I like Bo Nix more than Drake May and Micheal Penix by a considerable margin. I think he starts right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's a great situation. I don't think it's a situation that McCarthy has, but I think it's good.
I think it's good, not in the talent around him, as it is the coach that he's attached to with his specific skill set in that specific offense.
Yeah. And I think Sean Payton will be patient with him.
Yes.
I don't think it's a thing where you have to worry about, okay, week 4, get him out of here. And yeah, I don't think you have to worry. Excuse me. I don't think you have to worry about week 4, get him out of here. I think they're going to be patient with this kid. But I still think he starts week 1. And like, again, Superflex Dynasty League, you're sitting there with 105, 106. Give me Bo Nix.
Yeah, I agree. I am sitting at 105 in our Keystone Kings League. That is a 14-man Superflex league. And I am hoping that Bo Nix falls on my lap. And it looks like it might happen, and I'm all over him at 105. And that's having Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson on my team. One of them dudes is about to leave the NFL here soon, so I'm all over that, man. I really like the fantasy output that could come out of this. I don't know how great this is going to be in reality, but you might get a few years of really good fantasy output. And if everything goes right and they build around him and give him some real weapons outside of Javonte Williams, I think this could be.
But I think that helps too, because like I think with New England, and that's some of the problem with Drake May with the landing spot. Like I don't feel like New England is going to be able to run the ball very well. Which you were asking about Drake May being able to carry the team. I think Denver is going to be able to run the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's going to help.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Bo Nix is a big guy. And we're talking about fantasy football.
Sure.
They get down to the 1. You tell me they're not going to try and sneak it in there with Bo Nix?
Oh, they will. Yeah,
you know,
will.
like,
sure.
And I'm not saying this guy, I'm not projecting that Bo Nix is going to come up and put up Josh Allen numbers or anything like that. But I mean, as a QB2, and I think you could do a lot worse with a lot of the quarterbacks that are in there now.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Again, 105 I think is just fine. Would you take him over if you're sitting at, let me think, how would this work? If you're sitting at 105 and some crazy way, Harrison and Nix fall to you, regardless of your situation, who do you take?
My rankings, I have Harrison ahead of Nix. So regardless of my situation, I will say Marvin Harrison. That being said, in the situation that I'm in, if I have pick 5, I am probably taking Bo Nix because I'm very quarterback needy. So, I mean, situational, but just on a ranking standpoint, say your team is middle of the road. You have players in positions that you want, but you're just trying to prove that team. Give me Harrison over Bo Nix, but it is close.
Agreed. Okay, that's it for quarterbacks. Let's move on to the wide receivers. So we'll go right in order here of how they were drafted. So obviously, let's start with fourth overall to the Cardinals is Marvin Harrison. And I didn't do my due diligence as much as I should have on receivers because I was so focused on watching these quarterbacks. So we'll kind of go down the list of guys here. I'll name them off and where they landed. And I'm going to let Ty kind of carry the torch here for the receivers, and I'll have my input as well after he gives his thoughts. So, Tyler, Marvin Harrison, fourth overall to the Cardinals. What say you?
Love it. Love the landing spot from fantasy perspective. I mean, the Cardinals definitely want to throw the ball. Precision route runner.
Yep.
And he just makes the catches. I mean, even in this offense, I think he comes in wide receiver 1. I think big rookie numbers right out of the gate.
Yeah, Gannon's not afraid to move the ball down the field.
No.
I like him.
They're going to throw the ball.
Yeah. And Kyler's not afraid to push it either.
And I've always brought up this from a fantasy perspective. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be a very good football team.
Mm-mm.
I think they're going to play from behind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not very frequent in fantasy football, but when you have a losing team that still has a quarterback that can push the ball downfield and get his weapons the ball, that can be dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. It's
people can say what they want. Garbage points.
Yeah.
I mean,
they matter.
They matter a lot.
They count. Absolutely.
Yes. And I nothing against Marvin Harrison. Doesn't mean he's a garbage player or anything, but I see a lot of garbage points from Marvin Harrison.
Me too.
Like when you
it's because he's so elite. That's why you're gonna. And they're
Yeah,
gonna,
and
like you said, they're gonna have to throw it. That man will get open a lot.
Yes, and you think about the game flow of a game. Even I think he's getting open in press coverage and anything. But when the Cardinals are down 2 touchdowns and the other team's dropping into a zone prevent defense, like this guy is gonna just.
I agree. The only real competition for targets there is Trey McBride, who I think is going to be just fine. I actually really like Trey McBride. But competition-wise, James Conner, I like it. I love it. I don't know how you don't. Is Marvin Harrison's kid. I mean, and I think the pedigree is pretty clear on tape.
Oh, yeah, and that's another thing from a dynasty perspective. This is a wide receiver that you feel is here for the long haul. Like, you're going to get 10 or 12 years out of this guy.
So so let's go back here. Some of these quarterbacks we talked about. So he's 105 for you? Because you said you would would you take him over Drake May? You
yes.
would, right? Yes, and so would I. So that puts him at 5th?
For me, from a standings perspective, and this is not situational again, just on a ranking scale, I have him ranked at 3.
Okay.
But I am taking J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix over him if I'm in a quarterback needy situation.
Okay, so that puts him roughly at 5, 4 or 5, more depending on what you got going on. My assumption is if you're way up there, you probably need quarterbacks. So I could see situations in leagues where you're at 5, 6, and it's like, holy crap, Marvin Harrison.
I honestly wish Arizona would get somebody else there.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, and Michael Wilson and Trey McBride coming across the middle.
I kind of like Michael Wilson, man. He spiked a few times last year.
But yeah, I think he's going to be a target hog. I think
me too.
Kyler Murray is going to get him the ball. Love this situation. I think he's going to have a big year right out of the gate, and I think you're rolling with Marvin Harrison Jr. for a long time.
Not only do I think is Kyler going to get him the ball, I think there's going to be a lot of games where he forces him the ball.
Yeah, which if you're not a Cardinals fan, who cares?
Yeah. Totally agree, man.
Feed my guy.
Yep. So again, like Caleb Williams, he's pretty cut and dry. He's the first receiver off the board. I would say it's not close, but boy, have I heard some arguments for Malik Nabers. 6 overall to the Giants. I don't love the landing spot, and I do not love Daniel Jones. Ty, I'll let you take this one away. Maybe you can clarify a little for me.
Yeah, from a talent perspective, I do not think that there is a big gap between Harrison and Jr. and Malik Nabers. I think Nabers is him. Man, just what he can do in the open field alone. Like, well, that guy is lethal after he gets the ball. He can go up and make contested catches. I agree with you that I do not like the landing spot, and there's just
I really wanted him to land with the Chargers, man.
Yeah.
I get the Joe Alt pick, but I really, really wanted him to land there with Herbert. God, did I ever want that?
I believe the hype on the Malik Nabers. I'm on the Malik Nabers train. I mean, I hope that they can get him the ball. And that's why there is a discrepancy in their rankings, is that I feel 100% confident in Kyler Murray getting Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball, and I don't have that same confidence in Daniel Jones feeding Malik Nabers into the schemes. I mean, you're looking at like a West Coast scheme versus like a wide open vertical offense. I mean, I just love the kid. I mean,
his route running is absolutely elite.
That being
the
said,
speed is there.
I have him high enough. Like we've keep reiterating, but you're talking dynasty. I am still taking him over Odunze in Chicago. Reason being,
that's not even close for me.
Okay, but for some people, situationally,
sure,
you can make that argument. But for me, you want to win now in a dynasty,
bet on the talent.
I'll bet on that talent.
Yep, totally agree.
And if Daniel Jones doesn't play good, maybe the Giants are drafting a quarterback next year. You don't know what's going to happen. Like exactly like you said, I will bet on that talent. I think the talent is there. And there's a drop off for me after Nabers. Nothing against any of these other wide receivers, but those two are the supreme elite talent.
They're in their own tier.
Absolutely.
100% agree. Yeah, man, it's just the team that he's on is awful scary to me. But man, if you're in a position where you got a couple good young-ish quarterbacks, I mean, I take him right after Harrison. Really is where he should go.
And I will say this because he was double covered a lot last year. So it's not something new for him to be coming in.
Sure. He did have Brian Thomas, but I don't think Brian Thomas
But they still favored his side a lot. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
And I think that's going to be something, unfortunately for Nabers, that does hurt him, especially year one, just because of who the Giants lack at that position. You put Nabers on the field. If a team is going to double cover somebody on the Giants, it's probably going to be Nabers right out of the gate.
It sure is.
And we've seen other quarterbacks overcome this. Jamar Chase most recently in years, but Joe Burrow was there. So the Daniel Jones thing is a factor. But to reiterate what Chad said, I'll bet on that talent highly.
So you like 106?
Yeah. Now, and it is the Daniel Jones thing. He was 6 for me.
Okay. Well, wait a second. Nabers or Knicks? I'm sorry, Nabers or May?
Oh, right. Nabers.
Right, yeah. So that would put him at 106. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
So
rookie draft in this case,
if we're running a draft right now, Drake May's fallen. He's now at 107.
I'm fine with letting him fall.
So
if I have 106 right there, barring, I'll take Nabers. The Drake May thing, I have some concerns there, and from the tape that I've watched on Nabers, I mean, he's just not going to convince me that he's not going to find a way to make plays.
I agree. I do think, though, that I would take Drake May over this next fella, and you're probably going to argue with me a little bit on that.
I will argue that.
I know you will. Rome Odunze, I'm still not totally sure there. Let's go with Odunze. Rome Odunze, 9th overall to Chicago. Micheal Penix is lead receiver. I think the kid's great. I really do. My thing here is if I'm sitting at 107 and I've got my best choice at Odunze, I'm going to go quarterback at that point. If I'm sitting at 107, I'm not even thinking a quarterback's coming to me. I will bet on May's talent over Odunze. Somewhat, not buried. Buried's not the right word because he will be the third receiver, and Keenan Allen has a terrible injury history. You sell me on Odunze over Drake May at 107.
Odunze over Drake May is this situation. I think the Bears are going to throw Shane Waldron as the OC. I mean, he did pretty good things with Geno Smith. And even, wasn't great, but Jackson Smith and Jigba made some plays at the third wide receiver for Seattle. And I think Odunze goes into that third wide receiver slot role, which I think is great. Again, Chicago, a team where I think Caleb Williams has the ability to throw the ball. I think they're going to be in trouble in some games, which Chad doesn't totally agree. Chicago's defense is pretty decent, but like
I think Chicago's defense is above average.
I'll make
I think Chicago's defense could be a top 8 defense.
Wow. Yeah.
When they're not on the field all the time, man. And I think this changes things for that defense is not going to be living on the field like they have been. Which kind of skews how good that defense is. That's just my opinion.
So
it might be a bit of a long shot. But
I'll sell you Odunze on this. I have concerns with Drake May to the point that I don't know if Drake May is there in 4 years.
That's fair.
I think Odunze is definitely there in 4 years, and I think Keenan Allen is gone at that point, and Odunze is awesome.
Yeah. Well,
like you give me
I can't disagree with
year
you,
3
man.
or 4 with Caleb Williams, and he's the number 2 wide receiver, assuming DJ Moore is even still there.
Yeah.
Which, but even now, even year 1, I think I would have this kid projected at like an 900 yard, 6 or 7 touchdown season. But even right now, with the situation that it is.
Okay.
And that's if you're
talent.
assuming Keenan Allen stays healthy for 17 games. I'm assuming he doesn't. I think Odunze, at least for a couple weeks, is a good chance he's a wide receiver too.
That's, yeah.
So I will sell you on the point that I think Odunze is there in 4 years and is a top 25 wide receiver. And I don't know if Drake May is a top 25 quarterback in 4 years. I have concerns there with Drake May.
I think that's super fair. You did kind of sell me a little bit. Boy, I just have a hard time in Superflex not going quarterback, especially at 7. Good Lord. You may have sold me. I'm a little more 50-50 now. I do like Odunze. I'm not saying I don't like Rome Odunze. It might be a bad fault of mine to just lean quarterback that way, almost somewhat blindly. I'm definitely more 50-50 now. You sold me a little bit. You're not going to sell me here at all, though. 108. In my opinion, it's got to be Drake May over Brian Thomas, who went 23rd overall to the Jaguars. I sometimes feel like he might be a little bit of a one-trick pony, but I could be wrong. Again, I haven't watched these guys, the receivers, as much as I should have. I dug deep in the quarterbacks. I'm talking like 6, 7, 8 games apiece. I just kind of, glossed pretty quickly over the receivers. I just really like breaking down the quarterback play. That's all. I should have done a little more due diligence. So I'll send it to you. Brian Thomas Jr. to the Jags. Go ahead.
I like the landing spot. The tape on Brian Thomas Jr. that I'm seeing is, and we touched on Malik Nabers a lot of times getting that extra attention, getting the number 1 corner. Brian Thomas never had that. And that is nothing against Brian Thomas. He still found ways to get open. He was still a productive player. He also had elite quarterback play. But I like the situation with Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence. There's weapons on the Jaguars offense.
Ingram. Etienne, who I don't love. But
Travis Etienne. But, there's weapons there where I think he can come in this year and be productive. I probably have Drake May and Brian Thomas Jr. a lot closer than you do. I think it's very situational.
So if you're at 108, Brian Thomas falls on your lap, and so does Drake May because Odunze just went at 7. Is it Thomas or is it May? It's getting tougher now, right?
Between those two,
yep.
I'll tell you it's probably neither, and we can talk about that later on. But
yeah, I agree.
Between those two, I'll say just from Drake May, just from going off what my rankings are.
Through at a format standpoint, a league format standpoint. At that point, it's almost like, holy cow, man, are you really going to let him push 10?
It's situational, but
yep.
Drake May. I'll go Drake May over Brian Thomas there.
Okay. Yeah. I'm honestly, man, I'm not big on Brian Thomas Jr. I think there's other guys that I would take over him. It's not the next guy. It's not Xavier Worthy, who went 28th overall to the Chiefs. My concern, and I know the league's changing. I know it's changing. He's like 165 pounds. Is he a guy? Now, in real life, I think he could be great. But is he a guy, fantasy-wise, that you want to bank on to get 6 and 7 catches a game? You do?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it depends. See what happened with the whole Rajee Rice thing here.
Yeah.
But I love this landing spot. And then it's not just a Patrick Mahomes thing. It's how I think he's going to be used. I mean, you could make the argument in Kansas City, going back and watching their game, that if one of those guys, other than Rajee Rice, would have just stepped up, the targets are there. The Chiefs still throw a lot. It might be more of a West Coast thing. They still throw the ball a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There is 35 to 45 targets every game going around.
That's true.
Not a lot else there, I think. And watching the tape on Xavier Worthy, this kid, and maybe this actually goes to what you're saying for the injury thing, but man, he plays bigger than 165 pounds.
He does.
And I just think...
Can he in the NFL?
Weird. I think he can.
Okay.
I'm going to go on just... Like, man, there are some plays with Texas where he was just doing rugged things to get to where he had to go to with that ball. Contested catches, not an issue for this guy, which is something that I think Patrick Mahomes will greatly appreciate, being how it's been for Kansas City the last few years. I think even if Rajee Rice comes out and is playing week 1, which
probably not,
doubtful.
Game suspension,
I still think Xavier Worthy. I have Xavier Worthy higher than Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay. I was just gonna. That was my next question.
Yeah, I have him higher than Brian Thomas Jr. And he's not the only one, but I will tell you this right now that, like, unless I am in a quarterback needy situation, I will take Xavier Worthy over Drake May.
Okay. All right. See, I don't think I will there. I think, to me, outside of one potential guy I'm looking at that we're about to talk about.
Yeah, I'll take him over him too, but I will also take Xavier Worthy. And I'll make my last argument that I will make too is that the Chiefs traded up to get this guy.
They did. That's a valid point.
With some other wide receivers that we're about ready to talk about still there, they saw something in this guy, traded up to get him. I think he's in for a good year. I think if Rajee Rice isn't there, I think he could be in for a sneaky good year.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think he's going to have as good of a year as 31st pick overall to the Niners, Ricky Pearsall. Dude, all right, so this is one receiver that I was glossing over, guys. I had kind of heard some mentions of Ricky Pearsall, and I'm like, I'm going to check this guy out some more. I knew who he was, but I never really dove too deep into him. I didn't get to see him play a whole lot. Man, this is one guy when as I was glossing over receivers, like, I had to stop. I'm like, okay, I can't just gloss over this dude. So I watched more tape on him. What an elite slot receiver. Dude, his route running is out of control good. And I told Mitchell when we were watching the draft, I said, Ricky Pearsall is going to be a 49er. Mitchell, you can attest to it?
Absolutely.
Attaboy. That land, I did not expect him to go in the first round. I honestly thought later second. I don't think Ricky Pearsall could have landed in a better situation, and I do not care if Ayuk and Debo's there. One of them dudes is going to be gone here before too long, probably by next year, I assume. And I'm taking Ricky Pearsall. This is going to sound nuts, but, well, maybe not. I'm taking Ricky Pearsall right after Odunze. Is that crazy?
No.
Over your guy, Xavier Worthy. Pearsall or Worthy?
No.
That's what I'm asking you. Pearsall or Worthy?
Worthy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go Pearsall.
But I really like Ricky Pearsall, and I like him over...
And I listen, before, I want to clarify there. I said it's the offense. I know Xavier Worthy's with the Chiefs. It's the way the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan attack the slot.
Yeah.
And it might not be, and it probably won't be out of the gate, But when you're talking dynasty, man, I think Ricky Pearsall could be a super solid star in the league. I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot of times. But I'm taking Ricky Pearsall right after Odunze. I don't know if I'd take him over Drake May. Just again, this might be a fault of mine leaning into quarterbacks too hard in Superflex.
I will say that I would also take Pearsall over Drake May.
Will you?
Yeah.
So I'm not too crazy. What do you think of Pearsall?
Like him a lot. I do disagree with you a little bit on. I love the situation. I love Kyle Shanahan. Everything you said there. I'm curious to see how the Ayuk thing shakes out. Just because this offense is great, they're high powered. They move the ball down the field.
They're going to have to pay Purdy soon, and they already paid Debo.
So Debo, you're figuring is going to be there barring injury. We don't know what's going to happen with Ayuk. Even this year, there's still rumors going on about him. If Ayuk is there, I think Pearsall is great long term, not so much out of the gate. Just because I think he's great in real life out of the gate, but from a fantasy perspective, I'm starting to see too many mouths to feed.
You're saying if Ayuk gets a contract,
yes,
and Debo's still there, and
yes,
Kittle's still there,
yes,
and McCaffrey's still there,
yes,
I get it. I totally get it, man.
I think Pearsall. I seen the same thing you did on the tape. I mean,
I'm taking the risk and banking on Ayuk not being there.
I think that's fair. And
I could be wrong. Now we could get to next year, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should have taken, with Xavier
everybody
Worthy or May or whatever. But dude, I cannot not try to bank off that talent in that specific situation.
So what numbers? Let me just ask you this: Ayuk goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expecting wide receiver 2 numbers out of Pearsall?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
What about with Ayuk there? Still thinking flex wide receiver 3?
That scares me a little bit.
Okay.
Again, Kittle's still there. McCaffrey, Debo. Though I don't know how much longer Kittle has, but I think he's got a couple more years in the tank. Same with McCaffrey. Yeah, no, I'm actually a little bummed about my pick at that point. If that were to happen, if Ayuk were to sign a long-term deal and Debo's still there for a couple years to go yet, and like we already mentioned all the mouths to feed. Yeah, I'm kind of hitting my head off a brick wall at that point. Like, man, I probably should have went elsewhere.
And I think that's why I have Xavier Worthy still higher than him.
But I'm willing to take the risk because I think that risk could seriously pay off.
Yeah.
I do not believe that Ayuk will be there next year. I don't.
I would say that I lean towards not just
because they know they have to pay Purdy. And I think as long as Shanahan's there, Brock Purdy's there.
Not to mention, you've already paid Bosa.
Mm-hmm.
McCaffrey's got to be coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
There can only be like another year or 2 on McCaffrey. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's got to be there.
And they're going to pay him. They can't pay all 3 of those guys. So I really think this is it for Ayuk. I think they try to run it back with Ayuk this year, and then Pearsall has a chance to break year 2.
So Ayuk's
is that a fair judgment?
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, like we know, Dynasty, you're playing the long haul to a certain extent too. And I'm not even saying that you're doing that with Pearsall if Ayuk isn't there. I do think, whether it be a tag situation or whatever, I think Ayuk is there this year.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they know they need him to run it back.
Beyond that, I love Ricky Pearsall, and I'm with you, wide receiver 2 numbers. What do you think if Ayuk is there, all the weapons are there, everybody's healthy, what are you getting out of Pearsall this year? Borderline flex?
Maybe. Stat-wise, 500 to 600 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
And that's not really helping you much.
No.
But again, it's Dynasty, it's long haul. So I'm not worried about right now.
There's always an element of
with Pearsall.
If there's that talent there that Pearsall has,
sure.
You feel like if there's a coach that's going to go out of his way to get that guy the ball, it's Kyle Shanahan.
Yep.
And don't tell me that these coaches don't play into that a little bit. Knowing that Ayuk had the contract year coming up and wants to re-sign and all this, where they might start, let's send some stuff Pearsall's way.
Sure. Well, look what they do with Juwan Johnson in big games. It's like, oh, you're going to cover all those guys? Watch this. That could seriously happen.
Jennings, right?
I'm sorry, Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
My bad. That could happen with Pearsall, but that is not fantasy sustainable either.
No, but I will give you that argument that I completely agree with you on. That is like Ricky Pearsall is going to do different things with the football than Juwan Jennings. If you're getting him those passes across the middle with a linebacker covering him,
I
mean, it's going to be a different ball game.
Okay. Well, I know our time's starting to get tight here, so let's move on to a guy that neither one of us like really at all. That's not very nice, but Xavier Legette. Look, is that it?
Yeah.
Xavier Legette. 32nd overall to the Panthers. I don't know, man. First of all, can't stand the Panthers and what they did. We talked about it before the show. Poor Frank Reich didn't even want Bryce Young. I do not think Bryce Young's good. I don't think he's ever going to be good. I think that's going to hurt Legette. I don't think Legette is that great outside of he actually does quite well and did play some big boy schools playing for South Carolina for sure. Had a pretty good game against Georgia. He does a good job, I noticed, the little that I did watch against man and press. But it's Bryce Young and the Panthers, man. I don't know. Like, give me a Keon Coleman or something over that. I'm just Lad McConkey. I'm not into Xavier Legette, and quite honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about personally. But I'll kind of forfeit that to you and see what you have to say.
I like some of the plays that I've seen Xavier Legette make. I hate the landing spot. I'm also not a Bryce Young believer.
Does draft value and the fact that they moved up to get him do anything for you? Like, as in, hey, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get him the ball. Because, I mean, outside of Deontay Johnson, does that do anything for you at all? Or is it still like, no, this is still Xavier Legette, who I don't have a lot of stock in, and he's playing with Bryce Young in a terrible Panthers team? Is that where you sit?
Yeah, so it does, but not for this situation because Bryce Young is the quarterback, and that's just how I feel. It makes a difference for Xavier Worthy in Kansas City going up to get him. But for this situation, no, it doesn't, because I think Carolina is going to be terrible. I don't think Bryce Young is that quarterback. I don't think the Panthers are going to be able to run the ball. I just think this is a bad situation from a fantasy perspective all the way around.
Yep.
And it's not something that I really even... I try not to touch on it too much, but I also think that there's some concerns with like Xavier Legette as a person and like commitment to the game.
Really?
I mean, am I wrong that he was one that had the motorcycle accident like in mid-season?
I'm actually not sure on that, man.
I'd be interested to look that up. Make sure I'm not getting confused on that, but
we'll have Mitchell look it up.
And accidents happen, but
I know isn't he he's a fifth-year breakout. I know that. And
he's 22, I think. But I know he's 23. I know for me, just from my personal experience, if I am in college football where I have the potential to be drafted in the NFL, my ass isn't getting on a motorcycle.
No way. No. I don't know, man. Like, to me, honestly, like I hate to be like this for if there's people out there that like him, but I just don't think there's anything to talk about with Xavier. I don't like it. I don't like the spot. I'm not a huge fan of him. Not personally. He actually seems like a really cool dude. Like, listen,
he missed 2 games for a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
In 22.
Okay. Do you have anything else? I don't have anything.
No, I don't. For Legette, to me, it's just I just hate the situation, and I have, and we'll go over this late in a future episode, but I have a substantial amount of wide receivers in round 2 ranked over Legette. So for me, this is not a poor situation for him to land in.
How would you like him if Buffalo took him? Instead of screwing around there in the first, does Legette get like a massive bump? Like,
yeah.
Like over Pearsall?
This situation kills
over
this
Pearsall?
For me. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Because
he's a big dude. I'll give him that.
Perfect world. Pearsall goes to Buffalo.
But, yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, just because it's really the situation here is the biggest draw away from this kid. I mean, Carolina's a terrible landing spot. I don't like it. If Xavier Legette goes to Buffalo at 32, I probably have him right behind Pearsall.
Okay.
or even maybe pushing that because of like what we touched on with San Francisco and being too many mouths to feed for a year or two. I think Pearsall has more talent than Legette. But if he's going to Buffalo, I think you could make the argument that Legette is going to be a target hog with Josh Allen. But that's not what happened. He's in Carolina.
Before we move on, you said you like some second round guy. Not that I don't want to get into that. That's for another show. But Lad McConkey with the Chargers or Legette?
Lad McConkey.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. All right. That's really it there. That's actually it for receivers for the first round. So let's move on to our final player and the only tight end taken in the first round, which I guess that's the way it should have fell. Who's the second best tight end? Jatavian Sanders? Brock Bowers, 13th overall to the Raiders. Love the talent. I think he is an absolute freak of nature. He's as advertised. I don't think there's any question to it. Absolutely hate the landing spot. I really wanted the Colts bad. Really bad is where I wanted him to land. But he didn't. So, again, I didn't get to cover much here. Ty, did you?
Yeah.
All right, so I think we don't need to talk about, anything college-wise. To me, he's like Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams.
Elite level tight end
Yes,
talent.
elite level.
I disagree with you on the landing spot.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't think the Raiders are going to be good, but I think
who starts under center?
Doesn't matter for how I feel about Brock Bowers.
All right.
I'd like to see Aiden O'Connell get the nod, and I think with a young quarterback, a tight end like that is going to just do you wonders. Still have Devontae Adams on the outside. I do think the Raiders could have a running game there, which also kind of ties into helping them out. That being said, we talked previously before the show. In Gardner Minshew's time with the Colts, it's kind of deceiving because there's 3 different tight ends that they were running all the time. But on a percentage basis, Gardner Minshew still throws the ball to tight ends quite frequently.
I agree. It was just spread out.
Yeah, spread out between 3 different tight ends that were starting. But yeah, I actually do. He could have landed in a better spot, and if you're talking the Colts, yes, I think that would have been a better spot. But I don't think this is a bad landing spot for Brock Bowers. And to reiterate what we said about some of the people earlier, if you're talking, put most of the quarterbacks aside, I'll take him over Drake May. I'll bet on that talent because I just think it's
even
there.
A non-tight end premium. You would take Brock Bowers over Drake May. Non-tight end premium. Not all leagues are tight end premium.
That's true. That's true. We do play primarily in tight end premium leagues, but yeah, just because. So I'll make this argument: even in a non-tight end premium, tight ends are still a pretty hot commodity.
They are. They're few and far between, man. I'll give you that.
I'll still take him over Drake May.
I will not.
Fair enough.
I will not. I no way. Again, maybe it's to a fault, but in this case. In this case, it's not for me. I can't pass on a quarterback at this point. I can't because now we're talking what 111, 112.
You taking Odunze over Brock Bowers?
Yeah. Yes.
Ricky Pearsall.
Ooh, oh man, I love Ricky Pearsall, but I don't think I can do that.
Xavier Worthy.
Over Bowers?
Yeah.
No.
So he's landed more.
He is landed a little higher at that point, I suppose. Now you're talking me into it, Tyler. So we had Harrison at 5, we figured, correct?
Yeah.
Nabers at 6.
Yep.
We figured I wanted May over Odunze.
I do not.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm going at that point, May at 7, Odunze at 8, and Brock Bowers at 9. So he's inside the top 10. Okay, yeah, you kind of sold me there. Talking through it always helps. We're looking at a lot of names and a lot of notes here on our screen.
I will say this: my closing argument for Brock Bowers. I mean, as much as Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers or Caleb Williams for his position, I think you can bet on that talent with Brock Bowers. It's just there.
I don't disagree. He's an absolute. You kind of sold me a little bit with the whole Raiders quarterback talk. Yeah. This is, but this is why we do it. Sometimes you talk this stuff out, and you find yourself falling into thoughts that you didn't really have before, and that's why we do it. We hope it helps you too. That's the whole point of this, to try to win fantasy leagues. And we'll give you the best information that we can. Ty, did you have fun?
I did.
I know Mitchell did. He's still awake over there.
Oh, yeah.
Mitchell's still going to give Chad a stern talking to. We didn't forget about that phone thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it this time, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I don't know how many of you is really going to be out there in our first installment, but if you did listen, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. And Mitchell says thank you too as he's over there playing with stuff. We'll see you guys next time with some round 2 and 3 stuff. And everybody be good. Bye, everybody.